Today, we'll focus on community-based research programs and initiatives that implemented across the country to address our concerns about social injustice. The conference will have keynote speeches and panel presentations that examine social and policy issues such as education, public health, social class, criminal justice, your well-being that impact you.
This is an event that I cannot miss, and so I'm glad that I'm here with you and welcome you, and thank you so much for that introduction. As mentioned, our format today is going to be that we've got her personal experience invigorated her to desire to improve youth objectives, and she was particularly disappointed by the way that underperforming Black students were often dismissed as a lost cause. She decided that she needed much more training to gain an understanding of the processes by which young people understand their cultural selves and how this meaning impacts making influential relationships, academic achievement, well-being, and a sense of social responsibility.
Especially more recently thinking about police brutality and the shooting of unarmed youth. And a lot of that has to do with the way that African Americans, especially African American boys, are stereotyped or they're perceived as being dangerous for doing things that are developmentally appropriate, right? So a certain amount of defiance is developmentally appropriate. So when you think about the preschool to prison pipeline, oftentimes what African Americans and Latino children are suspended and expelled for are things that are considered to be disruptive behavior. So it's not for shooting up a school, or it's not for extreme violence, it's for talking back to a teacher.
He is a professor and chair of the Department of Social Work in the College of Public Policy at the University of Texas, San Antonio. He's the editor and co-author of 2 books, including Nation of Cowards and a new book, Black to the Future, that we were chatting about earlier, that he'll tell us about. He's presented papers at international and national meetings, conferences, and symposia on a variety of topics, and has written widely in peer-reviewed journals and books. I had an opportunity to speak with him briefly during our little emergency situation, and just was thrilled and just excited about some of the points and some of the focal aspects and some of the things that he's working on. Because there are issues that, from an economic standpoint, that we really need to understand and how it impacts us both historically, currently, and as we go into the future. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about your research and scholarship. And so, with no further ado, I give you Dr. Teasley.
First, we want to give some basic general definitions here, because I know we're speaking with a very young audience. One is the notion of microaggressions itself and what they mean, which are essentially the belief and commonplace of daily verbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial, gender, sexual orientation, religious slights, and insults to the targeted group. Now, according to Sue, a well-known behavioral psychologist, there are countless examples of microaggressions that take place in our daily lives. And many of the perpetrators of microaggressions don't realize that's what they're doing, but in fact they do. So when I arrived at the University of San Antonio, University of Texas at San Antonio, at my first student forum, one of the students came up to me and said, "That's a nice suit, how much did it cost?" That reminded me of Vanderbilt.
In 1983, about 65% of whites own homes, about 45% of African Americans. We've been, actually, Hispanics have made gains here, and now they slightly out-own African American cemeteries. It's about 45% African American home ownership is about 43%, and whites is about 65%. There's some estimates of white home ownership is about 75%. So only about 45% of African Americans now own homes, and their homes do not have as much value. Now,
Yale University and went on to receive her PhD in religion from Vanderbilt University. Her Her research focuses on how Black religious thought addresses political and economic injustices, especially among Black women. Her articles and essays have been published in a number of nationally regarded journals, such as the Princeton Theological Review Journal, Black Theology, and International Journal, and the Journal for the Society of Christian Ethics. Her first academic
Fine. I mean, this is part of the patriarchal narrative of Christian theology and Christian history, is that men's needs, men's longings, men's experiences have been placed at the forefront rather than women's. And so I think, and that's just one example I'm giving, I think there are a lot of moving parts, but I think within the African American community, what you're talking about concerning men probably is a bit more of a sensitive discussion, because I mean there is a way in which historically men were ripped away, beginning with slavery, from the family. Men were emasculated in every way, you know, to render sort of the family impotent. I'm merely using family in this context, not in a heterosexist sense, but rather in terms of the nuclear family that was promoted within American society. So that, for example, Daniel McGuire, a wonderful feminist historian, who writes At the Dark End of the Street, where she talks about, listen, if we're talking about lynching being used as a form of terrorism for Black men historically in this country, we have to talk about the ways in which rape was used as a form of terrorism for Black women. But yet this simply has not gotten, I mean, it hasn't been written